Hi friends, this is lesson 2 for our mini lesson on analyzing plot elements. Remember, our power standard for this week is that we are analyzing plot elements, including the sequence of events, the conflict, and the resolution. We talked a lot about these vocabulary words yesterday when we reviewed the parts of a plot or a story arc. We have the beginning of the story where we are introduced to the characters and the setting, and then we're also introduced to the problem. And this problem gets bigger and bigger. We call this the rising action. When the problem gets to a point where it can't get any bigger and the story is the most exciting, we call that the climax. And just like the peak of a roller coaster, the story starts to come to a close right at the end. Most times when we see the ending of the story, the climax and the resolution are pretty close together. Not a whole lot happens in the story after that problem is solved, so the resolution is generally pretty quick. Now, something I wanted to also mention is that parts of a problem can kind of work together. It's not one single problem getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The problem can have a bunch of little parts when we read a more complex story. And those problem pieces work together towards the main problem. So our job as readers is to understand how the many parts of the problem work together, and we can see how it all forms the main problem in the story. Now, yesterday I did a think aloud of the space rock, and we kind of highlighted some important parts of the story. We tried to keep track of everything that we were reading, right? So now I want to sequence the events on a plot map, all right? So, put this up here with our power standard. Okay? Now, at the beginning of the story, we are introduced to the characters, right? Mama, Daddy, Carl, brother, sister, and the dog. Okay, here's something we need to keep in mind. There's really only one main character. And that's Carl. Everyone else is what we call supporting characters. But the speaker in the story is the main character, and that's Carl. We also have the setting, which is Rock Creek. Now, when they're talking about Rock Creek, you get an idea of what the main problem in the story is going to be. They said that Rock Creek was in danger of becoming a ghost town, which is what we know is when everyone just leaves a town. There's no work, there's no money, and the buildings are left standing and they're just empty. That's a ghost town. So we can infer that people in Rock Creek don't have a lot of money. And that's true for the family. So I'm going to put these off down here to the side. We have our characters. We have our setting, a struggling small town. Okay? And we're introduced to the first hint of the problem. The family is struggling for money. You get a hint of that when Carl is walking around. Dad's trying to fix his busted truck. Mom's cleaning out the cabinets, and they don't want to be bothered because they're stressed. They're struggling for money, right? So Carl goes off into the woods, and suddenly a meteorite falls onto their farm. This is an important event because it kicks off a lot of change in these characters, because people start traveling from all over to see this meteorite, right? Remember how they said that they would come from as far as 800 miles away at all hours of the day and night, but Mama and Daddy were just so sweet and kind, let them see the meteorite and fed them if they were hungry. And the family starts to sell those teeny tiny pieces of meteorite that fell off the big meteor. And they're getting a lot more money to start solving those problems. Like daddy's truck is fixed. Mama gets new cabinets. The brother gets a car. All of these things are starting to be solved. But the family is then faced with a choice. People start offering them money for the meteorite. Started with $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. And every single time, Daddy would turn them down. And they're not quite sure why. The brother and the sister say he's waiting for the right price, but Carl isn't so sure. Then they get offered a huge amount of money, $7 million for the meteorite. That kind of money will make sure that they never struggle again. And the whole problem is that they are struggling. The whole town is struggling, right? And so the family is met with a choice. They can sell the meteorite for $7 million, or they can donate the meteorite to the town and help save it. Because the town has said when they come in to see the meteorite, they stay in the town for a little while. So they're helping out small businesses. And then the family votes. This is the climax of the story. This is the most exciting part. Remember yesterday I said my heart is pounding because Dad reaches into the box and he says, if I don't have 5 votes for yes, we're going to sell the meteorite for $7 million, no questions asked. So this is the moment. This is the most exciting part. And the family decides to save the town. So not only are their problems solved, they got to put a new addition on the house for Carl so he can have his own room. College is being paid for. They're paying down what they owe on the farm. All of their main problems are being solved by these tiny pieces of meteorite. But remember, this was only a small part of the problem. The big problem is not just that this family is struggling for money, the whole town is struggling for money. And these problems work together to drive that plot forward and make it so exciting to the point where everything changes. The family votes and they decide not just to be able to get $7 million for them, but to save the town and only take what they need. And Daddy says something really important in the story. This quote here, I believe that getting what you need out of something is better than getting all you can out of something. And if you were to ask me for the lesson or theme of this story, I would say that this quote here kind of sums it up. It's better to get what you need out of something than to get all that you can out of something. So taking a step back, you can see our completed plot map, right? And it's true, right? The story kind of ends pretty quickly after the family votes. It's boom, resolution, right? The family decides to save the town and the story is pretty much over from there. So what I want you to take away from today is to notice how important it is to sequence events in a story and understand how all of those pieces work together to create a cohesive plot that makes sense. When you take something out of the story, everything else falls to pieces. So now you've kind of like had our first taste of what this whole teak looks like. We're analyzing the plot elements, including the sequence of events, the conflict, and the resolution. Do you see how this looks like a story map here? So what I want for you to do today is I want you to think about a story that you have read. Something that you're reading either independently, something you've read on Epic, or maybe a story that your parents have read to you. And I want you to try to sequence the events in a story. You can use sticky notes like I have, or you can draw a plot map like this. And you can label the parts of the plot as it moves forward. Remember, you have to include all the pieces for it to make sense. That rising action, the climax, and the resolution. They all work together to make that one cohesive plot. Once you've created your plot, your story arc, I want you to take a picture of it and post it onto Seesaw for your teachers to see as well. Here's the important thing. You need to make sure you put the title of the book that you have read on your plot map so that we can understand what you're sequencing. So I'm going to write The Space Rock, put my name, and I'm going to title also Lesson 2. All that information helps your teacher understand what they're looking at when you submit your work. Great job and great thinking today, guys. I cannot wait to see the amazing things you do. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.